this is a required class. You were the IT majors, right? Okay, and so you're here under duress. How many of you, my voice is already going up, this isn't good. How many are you here because it's your tech elective for like the CS program or another program? Okay, and how many of you are here just because it seemed like a cool class to take and you don't have to take it at all and it's not counting towards your degree requirements? One person. Welcome to class. So what I'm doing right now is getting to know my audience, because in life everything has a design, just like a course design for this class, right? What are some of the things that you've heard from other students about this class from last semester? Go ahead. Yes, that there's a lot of group work required. Go ahead.
A lot of writing.
It's a lot of writing. Okay, what else? Go ahead.
A lot of UX.
A lot of user experience and user-centered design. What are some of the more negative things you heard? Go ahead.
A lot of writing.
A lot of writing. Right. All right, so one of the things that you need to know right now is that this class is going to be very different than your other technology classes. The reason being, this is the only class in the program where you get exposed to user experience and trying to be able to communicate effective technology requirements and design solutions based on the needs of somebody other than yourselves or your instructors. Because right now when you have a class assignment, it's pretty much been the instructor saying build XYZ to the specifications, right? For those of you who might be taking senior design, you might get exposed to a customer, possibly. Well, in this class, I'm turning that on its head, saying that we should not be designing technology just for the sake of technology. Because technology is a tool to help humans accomplish certain goals, okay? And so everything that these people just said is correct. There's a lot of writing because it's required that you can communicate your design effectively, and that you spend a lot of time thinking and putting thought into the design process before writing any code. This class, you won't write one line, okay? So please put away your developer's hats and start thinking about how to improve the usability of the systems that you're designing. Okay. All right, so that's just my brief introduction to the class. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Wisniewski. There's the pronunciation right there. Don't worry, it actually took me a few months to figure it out after I married my husband, how to pronounce and write my last name. So you're welcome to call me Professor Pam or Dr. W. Please don't call me Miss. I know this is the South and that's a thing, but I'm not big into that. And I worked really hard to get my PhD, and I think it's important, especially as women in computer science, that you pay attention to the level of effort that the women in this room and your instructors put into their careers. How many, let's see, would you say that there's more men in here than women? I like asking questions that I get an answer to. All right. And so that's another interesting thing as developers and designers, is that when you're developing technologies, think about it. Most technology is developed by men. What implications do you think that have for women in technology? Do women who are successful in technology careers have different characteristics than women who go into other disciplines such as nursing or teaching? Okay? So really, some of the things that we think about in this class are trying to understand humans and how humans interact with technology. So today we're going to go over a brief course overview, go in depth with the syllabus, and then give you some tips for success in this class. And then I'm going to give you your first extra credit assignment that will be available to you for the whole semester. Okay. So what do you think human technology interaction actually is? Oh, and I forgot to remind you, this is one of those lectures where I don't just lecture you, I actually ask questions and want you to talk. So please, feel free to raise your hand. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that there's no wrong answers, because there are, but we're here to learn, and so that's really the goal here. Go ahead, and what's your name?
Clyde.
Clyde. Go ahead.
Technology should be easier for humans to use.
Right, so human technology interaction is the ability to have technologies that humans can use. What else? Name? Go ahead and say your name. I'm going to try to find out who you guys are, but I think there's 166 of you, so if I get half, I'm going to be happy.
Braden.
Braden.
I guess it would be designing so that every part of the software that's designed to be used can be used and is easily accessible and understandable.
So easily accessible, so all different types of users could use it. That talks to universal usability. And actually user-friendly, where it's a system that's developed that has features that people actually use. Can anybody give me an example of a system that's not designed this way, where half of the features in the system you don't use? Go ahead, Nate.
My UCF.
What's your name? Tyler. My UCF. That's all right. It's good to know. Yeah, so my UCF, there's a whole bunch, especially like the apps and everything. Like I was designing the web courses page for this classroom, and I was going through and turning off the conferences and the chats and all the other things that I don't need because they're not applicable for this class. So there's a lot of times when things aren't user-friendly, and I'm going to tell you web courses is one of them. But that's the system that people pick and we use, and there's different consequences involved with that. Okay? So one of the things that I have here is this is a model of the components of an information system. Okay? So we have input that usually comes from either a computer program or a user. That input goes into some sort of different processing. So what's the processing piece of it? It's a class that you take on, for instance, what? It starts with a P. So when you're doing processing, it's usually based on the code or programming languages, right? That process the user input. For instance, if you build a calculator app that does a mod operation, one of your classes, everybody in college does that. That would be the processing, actually taking this input, doing something with it, and that's the programming side, right? And then there's also a component of information systems of storage. Is this even working? Storage. What classes do you take that involve storage? Name?
Nate.
Nate.
Database concepts.
Database concepts. So you guys, I know that IT students take one database course in Access, right? The CS students take additional database courses as well, okay? So what I would say, then there's output. What's output entail?
Like the user interface?
The user interface. So like for instance, there's a kiosk screen or a monitor, an LCD display, or even a command line DOS prompt that outputs the information either to the user or back into input to the system again. Okay? So where in these 4 blocks do you think most of your classes in your program focus? Name? Wendy. Right. So a lot of your classes focus on the processing and storage. Of course, like there's a ton of people in here probably who are doing systems admin and the networking side of it. So that's also a component of information systems networks. But really, these 2 blue blocks are where you guys spend most of your time learning about. What human technology interaction is this part here, when users interact with the system to input information, and here, output. So this is the interface here. or what we call human-computer interaction. Truthfully, HTI, human technology interaction, isn't something we use in industry. We call it HCI or UX. Okay. So it's the interspace between the output for the user and the input for the user into the system. And that's what we care about in user experience, because really this middle part here for a typical user is considered a black box. Oops. Not sure where that happened. All right, so any questions about that? So really the interface between input and output and the user. All right, so what are some of the reasons we care about HCI? What's your name again?
Clyde.
Clyde.
Technology is more pervasive now, so I mean, even the most pedagogic person has a hard time getting away from at least something computerized.
Right, so technology is ubiquitous, where it's everywhere we go and in everything we do. Can you think of an interaction that doesn't involve some kind of technology these days? Name?
Travis,
Travis.
any kind of tool like a hammer or a hose.
Okay,
Any
so
kind of tool.
manual labor tools. So that's probably a great niche to start developing technology for because it hasn't been touched yet. But I know things like even spatulas and meat forks for your grill. Haven't you seen those digitized? So we're getting to the point where almost everything has an embedded system in it, which requires some level of user interaction experience. Okay, what else? Why else is HCI important?
Money.
Who said that? What's your name?
Has
Taz, right?
bad design costs money.
Bad design costs money. Can somebody tell me what Microsoft is doing right now with Windows 10?
Putting the start button back.
They put that start button back, that's for sure. Did you know that they're upgrading everybody from Windows 7 and 8 to Windows 10 for gasp, free, right? Does Microsoft ever give anybody anything for free?
Internet Explorer.
They're actually they're discontinuing the support for Internet Explorer based on an article I recently saw. And I think they're coming out with a new browser. What's your name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
They are using the telemetry in Windows 10 to make up the price difference. So you're getting a new operating system, but you're paying with everything that makes you you.
Right, right. So they're getting the information from you. And the thing is, they're also trying to rectify their mistake because they've been continually losing market share to Apple. And so they're really trying to do their best to stay competitive. So a great classic example of bad design costs money. All right. How about in terms of jobs? Any of you have you thought of working in the UX design industry or any of the related careers, like being a business analyst who does do like requirements documentation? What's your name?
Are you asking if I've done any work?
What's your name?
Sean.
Sean. Well, tell me what you're going to tell me.
Well, I mean, I don't really like the programming side of IT. I
Right.
like more of the business analytics because if you can show the CEOs don't want to know the details, they just want to know, am I making money? Like, where's the money flow? And everything.
Exactly. So, IT and CS in the business application, you really have to be able to communicate the value of IT, right? Like you need to be able to say what the return on investment is on doing this new project. For instance, I worked as a developer for Raymond James Financial down in Tampa Bay, and I worked in their IT compliance department. It was really easy to justify the projects that I worked on from a IT portfolio level because the compliance department's job was to prevent people from suing Raymond James. And so the opportunity cost of the lawsuits became our budget. So we were developing an application to assess the suitability of clients' portfolios after the big .com bubble burst. What do you think happened back then from a financial advisement investing point of view.
There just wasn't enough, there wasn't enough of a market to create more websites because there's so many websites already built.
Right, so they got saturation really quick. Clyde?
A lot of people probably pulled out their investments too once a lot of people bought into the market because .coms were booming. So once that busted, they just pulled the money out.
Right.
Which meant bringing things with a
And so let's talk about the user perspective. There are all these people who were invested in these high-tech portfolios who, in the financial world, you'll learn you have to specify your risk tolerance, which are you very risk tolerant because you're young and you have a long haul to go, or are you risk adverse because you're older and you're about to retire, and your time horizon. For instance, if you're about to retire, you want your money sooner than later. And people who said that they were risk adverse with a shorter time horizon were still invested in these high-tech, high-risk portfolios. And when the market crashed, they all started suing the FAs or financial advisors because their portfolios were outside of compliance or they were not suitable based on their stated level of risk tolerance and their time horizon. So my job was to help build a suite for software that could flag if a client's portfolio didn't meet their stated goals of their risk tolerance or their time horizon. Okay, so you can see that at the time, I was a systems developer. I was a code monkey because there was no such thing as UX or design at that time, back in early 2000s. But if we had user experience folks on the scene back then doing usability testing, that would have been one of the things that we would have identified as a disconnect between the user's goals and the implementation of technology and of the business. Okay, so now I graduated too early because when I first came out, I was a systems developer. I moved over to doing more business analyst work because I was the coder on my team who asked the questions, well, why are we doing it this way? What does the user want? Why aren't we doing it this better way? And so then I started doing more on the sides of, okay, what are the user requirements and what do we actually need to do to meet the customer's needs? And that was a career path that I enjoyed more because I got to work with technology, but I also got to work with real world problems and help people. And that's one of the reasons that I went back for my PhD in human computer interaction to learn more about how we can actually help solve problems with technology. So my research right now is looking at adolescent online safety. So I try to find ways to help teens be more resilient to online risks. A lot of the research that's out there now, or the approaches or solutions, are very authoritarian. What do I mean by that? Let's cut off their internet access. Let's block this website. Let's try to prevent them from being exposed to any risk at all. I call this the abstinence-only approach. And from an evidence-based perspective, does that approach work well? Technically, no. So one of the things that I'm looking at is ways to help teens cope and deal with some of the online risk experiences. Like what? What do we hear in the news all the time? Cyberbullying, sexual solicitations, things like that. So even though I started out as a developer, I ended up more on the HCI path because my passion is trying to help people with the use of technology. So consider this as a potential career path for each and every one of you. Because even though you're a technology major, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to set up networks all the time and hit buttons and switches and write code. There's tons of opportunities out there to engage with technology and people. All right, so we're going to be talking a lot about user-centered design or user experience, which is abbreviated as UX. What UX is it focuses on the goals and needs of the end users. Instead of trying to develop for yourself and what you think would be great, you're actually going to solicit feedback from users to build the mobile apps that you're going to design this semester. It also requires us to put aside our own assumptions. The things that we like and we think are right might not be right for your end user, especially if they're a different target demographic than you are. It also forces us to be willing to change our initial design decisions. This is what my class last semester had the hardest time doing. They gave me their design document and they said, this is what we're doing. And I gave them feedback. Like for instance, one of the groups named their application Smooth Move. Why do you think that might not be a good idea? Anybody ever see that old X-Lax commercial? Another group decided to name their app Travel Pro, and so their icon was the initials TP. So people make these decisions not thinking about some of the consequences, and we all laugh now, but it happens out in the real world, doesn't it? Okay? For instance, I was teaching a web development class once, and this lady was designing a website for a boyfriend who did tile artistry stuff. And so she did this nice logo that looked like glass tiles that said artistic design. And she got an A in class. I was like, this is a great website. My husband comes by my computer and he just busts out laughing. And I was like, what's wrong? This is the best website in this class. Well, the way that she arranged the tiles for the A in artistic, he laughed. He was like, artistic design, yay, that's so funny. Yeah, he's a little Beavis and Butthead. And then I saw it, and I'm just like, yeah, she needs to change that. And I went back to the class and told her, and she was just like, oh, okay, I need to change that. So there's a lot of things like that in design that if you don't get feedback and you design in this vacuum, you're going to get in trouble. Okay. And then it also teaches us to observe, listen, and empathize with our users. Right now, a lot of us are a little passive-aggressive and don't want to empathize with users because we tend to be the ones that people use as tech support. Like my mom calls me if she somehow deletes an icon on her iPad. And it gets really annoying over time, and like we have all these memes about, oh, it's user error. Okay? Well, sometimes it's not user error, it might be bad design. All right. So this is the process of UX design. You identify the needs and establish requirements for the user experience. You then develop alternate designs, and this is even before you write a line of code. You build interactive prototypes and assess those prototypes, and then you actually evaluate what's being built and the user experience that it offers. And based on that, you redesign it. So you can see here, it's a cyclical or iterative process. And that's what you're going to be doing in your group projects this semester. This is a brief textbook overview. And what I'm using the textbook for is for you to get the conceptual knowledge about the foundations of human-computer interaction. I'm not going to lie to you, the book is a little dry, okay? But buy it and read it because I don't want you to say things that show that you don't know what you're doing, especially if you're interviewing for a position that has any kind of UX component. So it's really important to learn the background, the history of HCI, and some of the lingo so that you can speak intelligibly about it. And the exams are primarily going to be on the textbook to make sure you're reading it, because I know that there seems to be something at UCF where people are proud that they've never bought one of their textbooks or read them. I want to break that streak with this class. Okay? This is going to be the breakdown of how your grades can be calculated at the end of the semester. 40% goes into your exams. There's going to be 3 exams with 1 drop, which means if you do well on your first 2 exams, your comprehensive final can be optional. Again, this is mostly on your conceptual knowledge of definitions and terminology and the things taught in the book. And then that's going to be based on the class lectures. I'll also tell you, you could probably make about an 80% on your exam if you just attend and pay attention to lectures and take notes, okay? I make my lectures based off of the book. I create my own slides, and I talk to you and get examples from the class. So even if I ask somebody in class a question and they answer it, that's fair game for a test question related to that, as long as it's relevant to the topic in the book, okay? Like for instance, we just talked about Windows and what they're doing to try to improve the user experience. That was material covered in this class, so it's fair game, okay? That's emphasizing that I want you to attend lectures because this is a face-to-face meeting class, okay? The exams will be multiple choice, Scantron based, and curves will be at my discretion, which means you may or may not get curved, okay? The group project is going to be where you guys get to create applied knowledge by actually doing an actual project. I'm going to have you group in teams. We're going to have about 30 teams this semester of about 5 or 6 each. And you're going to find a customer who's your target audience. Some of the requirements of that are going to be that the customer cannot be a typical college student like me. It has to be a different demographic. Okay? So it could be adolescents, or the elderly, or single moms, or police officers, or somebody that you know who has a specific role, and that target audience could use an app to solve one of their daily problems. Okay? So keep that in mind. You are going to have some opportunities to work on the project in class, but you will have to work outside of the class if you want a good grade on your projects. I want you to treat your projects as if this is an actual company and you're developing it to go live, as if you were going to put it on the Google Play Marketplace or the Apple iTunes store. And so I want this to be quality work that, for those of you who are interested, maybe one day doing more of the design role, you could put this as a project showcase in your portfolio. So your projects, I have a high bar, okay? So keep that in mind. In-class group work. Essentially, this is a participation grade because I get a lot of complaints that, well, my team, we couldn't coordinate schedules, and so the way that we did the group project is we just split everything up, and then like 2 days before it was due, if that, we just all put it together in one document. What do you think happens when that occurs?
Bad things.
Bad things. We'll just leave it at that. So there's no cohesion or consistency in the document, and the students get a bad grade. Okay? So the in-class group time is to get rid of those excuses of, well, we didn't have time to meet because of our schedules. You are all free right now because you registered for this class. So I expect you to be in class, and I will take attendance on these days and give you a little brief handout sheet that you fill out as part of your assignment for that day to report in. Any student who doesn't show up that day will not get credit, okay? There's one drop for this. Also, we have some individual assignments. In some cases, this is going to be attendance, for instance, for the exam reviews, or for guest speakers or video demos. In one case, I'm going to actually have each student in the class review 2 of the group project proposals and give feedback so the groups can make it better. So if somebody does the math, if there's 30 groups and over 150 of you, how much feedback will each group get? About 5-ish maybe from each student, right? So that feedback can be used to improve your final prototypes for your group projects, okay? So we're not only going to be designers in this class, we're also going to be critics, okay? I'll go over this in more detail in the syllabus. So some of the goals of this course are conscientiousness raising. For instance, to show you why design is important, because design is in everything from the layout of this classroom to the design of your keyboards, to the design of your mouse, to the design of the doors. And to raise your level of consciousness about why design is important and that thought has to be put into it. You can't just build it and they will come. We're not before the .com bubble burst. Also, learn design processes. Design is a very iterative process. It's not hierarchical or linear like when you're developing a program in a bubble. Design can change drastically. For instance, when you do your benchmarking of your competition and you find, oh my goodness, there's an app exactly like what we wanted to develop. and it's really good. So should you go ahead and develop that app as is, or should you try to change your idea a little bit to make it novel and new? That's kind of a biased question, right? So the goal here is you want to try to change it to say, okay, this is something that we're doing that's above and beyond our competitors. So you just made a change, and then you'd have to actually incorporate that into the final design of your prototypes. Also, how to be a design critic. It's actually really bad to criticize the work of others, but then very hard to design something from scratch yourself. Have you ever experienced that? Okay, so we're all good critics already. But to incorporate those critiques into improved design is going to be the key. And how to be a good critic means that when I point out that something's wrong, I need to also point out a possible way to fix it, instead of just saying, hey, that's bad. Okay. And then finally, improving your HCI design and evaluation skills. I know a number of you are going to go on to be systems admin or security analyst or some other field. But in whatever field that you're in, you're going to have to work with user interfaces, and you can use that to your advantage. For instance, what's one of the #1 security risks or flaws in pretty good privacy, like PGP email encryption? For you security folks. Go ahead.
Probably keys.
The keys. What do people do with these keys?
They share them.
They share them. So people have a private key and a public key for their email encryption, and people just think, oh, well, I'll send my private key along with this email that's encrypted. Well, then what happens? Then the whole encryption thing is just wasted, right? So a lot of times humans are the weakest link, even for security professionals, when you're working in businesses. For instance, what do you think is the most commonly mistaken state picked on a form? Alabama. Why? Because if they default the first one to Alabama and people don't change it, lo and behold, like 60% of people now live in Alabama. Orlando, Alabama. All right. All right, so these are things that you're hopefully going to learn in this class. And now we're going to talk about the syllabus. I want you to print and read the syllabus because I took like a whole day writing this. All right, so my office hours are going to be directly after class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2:45 to 4:15. I learned this because after class last semester, I always ended up seeing an hour extra because students were asking me all sorts of questions. So I figured I might as well make that my actual office hours. But if this time doesn't work for you, then you can go ahead and make an appointment with me to come talk to me. Unlike some of your other classes where people think, oh, I don't want to bother the professor, I want you to bother me, okay? I want you to do well in this class. If you have questions about your resume or an internship, come talk to me. I might not always be in my office, but you can schedule an appointment, and I want to get to know each of you, okay? Especially if anybody's interested in possibly pursuing a PhD. I'm looking for PhD students. Did you know that you can go straight from a bachelor's program to a PhD program? Okay. So things like that. Come talk to me. Let me know what kind of opportunities you're interested in. Course description, I'm not going to read to you. You can read that on your own time. The teaching assistants are listed here. This is your required textbook. And yes, it is required. Please buy it. Even if it's a digital copy, that's fine. You can buy the digital copy because you're not allowed to bring it to your exams. Just have the book to be able to read it to get that supplemental information. Web courses is where everything for this course will be posted. I'm going to use the modular format by week. I'm going to post your lecture slides, an updated course schedule, any of your assignments. Yes?
For the textbook, does it have to be the 5th edition or like previous edition?
I think a previous edition, like 4th or something, it should be okay.
Alright.
Just you're responsible for if the lecture differs in any way, like if there's a chapter missing or something, for getting that information from either me or one of your classmates. Okay? So web courses will be used for everything in this class. I know a lot of you might not actually use your UCF email as your primary email address, and I don't think they allow you to forward it, right?
They do.
They do? So if you don't use it as your primary email address and they allow you to forward it, do that, because I send out class announcements which go to that email address that I'm going to just assume that you've read, okay? And then alternatively, anytime you contact me, instead of emailing me directly, email me through web courses, because it's a nice way to make sure I don't lose any of your emails and I can respond to you. Am I being loud enough? Okay. All right, so here's the assignment weight. There are 3 exams worth 40% of your grade. Group project, which you're going to have about 5 deliverables throughout the semester, which is another 40%. And then the 10% for both your in-class group work and your individual assignments, which are both more participation level type grades. This semester, I'm going to implement the plus and minus system. And so also note here that at the end of the semester, I am not going to round up your grades. Because for 166 students, I'm not going to look at each and every one and then change probably at least 25 grades manually because you are so marginal. So the key is making sure you're not marginal at the end of the semester, so you're not coming to me to say, oh, please, I was only 0.1 away, or I was at a 0.7. Please round up. Okay, there's going to be opportunities for extra credit. There's going to be an opportunity to revise your first project deliverable in case you didn't get a good grade. And so you need to take those opportunities, because I'm not going to fudge your grades at the end of the semester. Here's my late assignment policy. You cannot submit something late, and I'll tell you because you're here today. If the system is down and you're like an hour late submitting it and you're like freaking out and you're emailing it to me because something in the system's down, I'm not going to count it late, okay? But there's a deadline. It's going to be 11:59 p.m. on the day that it's due, that everything is due, okay? Last semester, nobody turned in anything late, really, so I said, you know, I'm just not going to have a late assignment policy. So just make sure that your assignments are turned in on time. Some of the things here is that you can have documented emergencies. For instance, if you get in a car accident, or if you've been hospitalized, or your grandparent dies. And I'm going to be tough and say, okay, please bring me the obituary. Because some of you guys seem to have like 5 grandmas, okay? So as long as you have the proper documentation, and it's not something like a group deliverable that's been due for 5 weeks and at like the last day you decide you can't turn it in, I will make exceptions for those special situations. However, you have to give me those excused absences or any other grade disputes within 1 week of your grade being posted on web courses. The reason I say that is because at the end of the semester, last semester, somebody was contacting me about a participation assignment they missed on the first week of class. Oh, well, here's this doctor's note that I've had for the whole semester. And I spent probably 20 hours just addressing all of these different grade change requests at the end of the semester. So instead of doing that, I'd rather do it throughout the semester. For instance, if I post a grade, have an excused absence, or if there's some other reason you want to contest it, you have to do it within a week of the grade being posted. For the group project deliverables, you're going to have about 5 of them, and it's very important that you work with your group throughout the semester. It's not going to be enough time if you start the deliverable the week you do. In fact, for some of them, you're going to want to work concurrently. For instance, on building your prototype and then doing your video demo of the prototype, you might want to have one part of your group working on one part to at least get the technology figured out while the other part of the group is finishing up the prototype. Okay? So you're going to have to use some of the project management skills that I know some of you have. All of you taken like a project management class in here? So a lot of you have. So use those skills. Group project does not have any drops. The in-class group work, you have 1 drop, no questions asked. And basically, if you show up and do what you're told to do, you will get credit for that assignment, okay? You have one drop, and then if you have any others, it has to be a documented excuse if you want to get credit for it. I'll probably give you a makeup assignment to do that. One of the warnings here is if I see a group trying to cover for another group member who's not there, the whole group will get a 0 for the in-class participation assignment. Because we're not going to try to condone free writing, okay? The individual assignments, you also have one drop, but the one thing that you can't drop is going to be your individual critiques of the other group's project documentation. And the reason for this is that it's important for them to get that feedback from you so they can have really good projects at the end of the semester, okay? I really want quality projects once we get to the video demos. And to do that, you have to get feedback from multiple sources, not just me. So that's one thing with your individual assignments that you will not be able to drop. But for attendance assignments, such as an exam review, you have that one drop. And there's my thing about the grade disputes about being within 1 week. Again, with course communications, please use web courses. I will respond to you within 48 hours of any email that you send me. If I don't, that means somehow I didn't get it, so please send me another email. You're not bugging me. The only caveat is if it's a weekend and you send me something at Friday at 5, I might not respond to you till the next Monday. Because I'm trying to protect my time as well as yours. The student feedback survey that you guys all have to take for financial aid purposes, instead of being due Friday, I'm just going to have it due Thursday at 11:59 p.m. because some people complained last semester Friday at 5 was just bad timing for them. So that's when it's going to be due. I haven't posted it yet. That's what I'll be working on tomorrow. This is, there's going to be a course schedule out on web courses. Computer is insanely slow. See how the human's the weakest link for security? Alright, so here's the course schedule posted out on web courses, and I will delete the old one and upload a new one anytime a change is made. So it is your responsibility to check the course schedule out there. That's so tiny, so let me open it here. So here, in-class group work is in blue. The individual assignments, which means you should be in class for them to get the grade, are in green. And then lectures, I don't take attendance, but you should be here, okay? There's your spring break. And then here are all the different deadlines when they're due at 11:59 p.m. that day, okay? So this schedule will change throughout the course of the semester. Please make sure you're aware of it and mark the days when it's important for you to be in class. Yes?
Will you notify us when it changes? That way we don't have to check it.
Yes, I can send an announcement through web courses and say a new course schedule has been posted, please take a look. Okay? And if for some reason we have an in-class assignment and I didn't do that, you can hold me to that, send me an email, and I will make myself accountable for that. Alright. Here are different deadlines. The deadline to withdraw, by then you should have your grades for your first project deliverable and your first exam. So you should have a good idea of whether or not you want to continue with this course this semester. Holidays, we have spring break is really the only one that affects this class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Here's the attendance policy. Attendance is taken on days that there's an individual assignment or in-class group project work. However, for the lectures, I'm not going to be taking attendance. Again, I encourage you to attend during lectures because that material will be what is on your exams, which is 40% of your grade. Class conduct. Please feel free to disagree with me in this class and to challenge me. Ask me questions and let me know when I'm wrong or if I could do something better. The only thing I ask of you, actually I require of you and of myself, is that we do that respectfully between one another. Okay? Because we're all adults and we all have our opinions. And as long as we can learn how to effectively communicate those. Last semester, I had to educate some students because they got a grade, maybe an error, or maybe because that's what they deserved, and they got flaming emails. And the first thing I addressed was, think about this from a psychological perspective. When you're emailing your professor, and I get an email telling me and accusing me of this, that, and the other, how likely do you think I'm going to be to want to help you? And then the students would back up and say, okay, I'm sorry, I was really angry. But one of the things that you have to be cognizant of is that I know technology is this medium that makes it easier for you to say what's on your mind, but there's another person on the other end, okay? And so learn that in this class and learn that moving forward, especially on Facebook and other social media mediums because the internet lacks civility, okay? Academic integrity. All of your assignments that are, all of that, there's a lot of writing in this class, are going to be put through turnitin.com to make sure you're not copying and pasting something from an online source and putting it into your document. Overall, I'm not too worried about this because your projects are going to be so unique that it'll be hard for you to copy and paste something from somewhere else that would apply to your projects. But keep in mind, if you're to the point where you're copying and pasting something from somewhere, you need to either cite that reference or paraphrase or do whatever it is that's required to make sure you're not plagiarizing, okay? Also, special accommodations. For those of you who use student accessibility services to take your exams, I will make sure that I send that information over to student accessibility services. For those of you who need any other considerations, for instance, if you can't hear me in the back of the room, or you're having a problem seeing the slides, or even if you think about it, student accessibility services is for all types of disabilities. So people with ADD, people with depression, anxiety, okay? These are all covered disabilities that the university is committed to helping you still succeed despite of, okay? So if you need somebody to talk to or to get help in the class, please come to me. The thing is, if you come to me at the end of the class and say, well, I didn't do well in the class because I couldn't see from the back of the room, or I have ADD and I couldn't pay attention to lectures and that's why I did bad, can you still improve my grade? At that point, there's no way for me to make reasonable accommodations, okay? So whenever there's a problem, that's when you need to contact me so we can come to a resolution. At the end of the semester, I will be very empathetic, but there's little I can do for you. And then the disclaimer of changes is that if I make any changes, I will announce this, but nothing's set in stone, so we can make changes throughout the semester, especially if we find that something isn't working well for this class. And so please let me know if you have feedback as we go along. The only feedback that I won't entertain is, you know, this class is too hard, you need to make it easier, okay? So common myths about this class. When I first came here and started teaching this class, the first thing I did was Google CAP 4104 UCF. And I got a lot of student forums saying, hey, you should take this class as the easy blow-off class to get an A because this is the class that you should fill your schedule with if you're taking a really heavy load. Anybody of you get that message? If you did, you should probably drop the class because it's no longer that class, okay? What's that? I'll tell you this, next semester, I will not be teaching this class. I don't know who will. I will still be the course custodian for this class, meaning I have oversight for it. Because the background is they hired me here for my expertise in human-computer interaction to help improve the IT curriculum for HCI, because as you all know, we've been working really hard to get ABET accreditation, okay? So because of that, I'm not going to sit here and waste your time or my time by making this a blow-off class. Okay? So that's where we're coming from. The paradigm has changed. If you walk out now, it won't hurt my feelings. Okay? Also, because we don't code in this class, it's going to be easier than my other CS, IT, or computer engineering classes. In fact, a lot of my students last semester found this class harder because there is no objective right or wrong. Instead, you have to justify your whys and your hows and your decisions in a reasonable and logical way and be able to effectively communicate that. And I was surprised to find that a lot of the more technology-oriented students had a really hard time doing this, okay? Because your projects, they're kind of open-ended. You can go almost any direction you want. But I'm going to help you along the way and give you feedback, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do. I'm not going to say, please create XY system. I will learn the rules for designing good interfaces in this class. Why do you think this is a myth?
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly. So a lot of the black and white thinkers think, well, this class is going to teach me the exact rules for a good interface design. And as long as I follow all of those rules, we're good. Well, in design, we have what's called heuristics. What do you think a heuristic is? It's not like an optimal algorithm. It's a...
Is it how everything like works together?
So that's a system. So when you're looking at different components and trying to see how one thing changes versus another, we usually call that systems thinking. But what are heuristics? Go ahead.
Adrian, it's logical shortcuts.
Logical shortcuts. So they're rules of thumb or they're guidelines to kind of push you in the right direction, but they're not hard and fast rules. And guidelines are meant to be broken. For instance, when's a time that it makes sense to violate the design guideline that you, on web pages, you probably should use a font that's about 10 to 12 point.
For if your audience is retired people, you want bigger fonts.
Right. So if you're designing a website for half of the Florida population, you might want to use a larger font. So there's always going to be considerations based on who your users actually are. Okay. So the goal is to actually use technology to solve real-world problems for the user that you have in mind. All right, so some tips for success. The conceptual knowledge, all that stuff that's in your textbook and the lectures, actually put on here. Buy your textbook, read your lectures. That way you can put off some of those questions at the first exam review on, do I really need to buy my book now? Do that now, please. If you get the electronic one, I'm fine with that. If you get the previous version, I'm fine with that. Please read your books. It would be great. Unrealistic. If you read the chapters before class lecture, so you can actually talk to me intelligently about the chapters. I realize that doesn't happen. But these are some of the standards that I would like to set for this class so that you can actually engage in conversations. Also, participate in class discussions. It's really boring for me if I'm sitting up here talking to you for an hour and 15 minutes. Usually longer because I tend to run over. So if I'm like 15 minutes to go and I'm not halfway through the lecture, tell me that I have 15 minutes left. It will not embarrass me. It will help me because otherwise it will go over because I have like 5 minutes left now. So those are some things to know for the conceptual knowledge. For the knowledge application for your group projects, some of the things you need to do is collaborate with your group. Don't turn this into individual assignments that you put together at the end. Work together, do brainstorming sessions, actually communicate. I know that's hard to do with everybody's schedule, but that's required for this class. Also contribute to each deliverable. I'm going to not have free writers in this class. Each deliverable, I'm going to have authors and editors for each section of the written proportion to actually say your level of contribution and that you incorporated your work in this document. One student last semester got a 0 on an assignment because his name was not in any of the sections as an author or an editor. And he said, well, you know, we met as a team and I told my teammates that this is what I think they should do. Isn't that participation? I was like, you know, it's really easy to tell other people what to do than doing the actual work yourself. So the bar in this class is doing the work yourself. One of the ways that we're going to ensure that is that there is going to be a peer evaluation that will affect your grade. It could affect your project grade for up to even a letter grade at the end of the semester. So make sure that you have good teamwork with your group. Treat your project as professional engagement. I want this to be something that a company could see and say, yeah, this is work that we could have done. Going above and beyond the minimum requirements. Truthfully, if you just follow the minimum requirements to the T, you'll probably get about an 80%. Because the goal in life isn't to just meet the minimum requirements, it's to do quality work. And as adults, you need to start learning what quality means and going there. If you don't understand it, then you should ask me. Go ahead and ask. Yes? What? 100? Well, some of the things to do, so I do have rubrics, but really the way that you can get an A or 100 is going above and beyond to try to do the best work you possibly can, okay? Coming to me and asking for feedback. Other things you do is follow directions on the assignments. I spend at least a day coming up with all the detailed instructions for your assignments because it's all stuff that I can't fit into every lecture. And if you do it in a different format or if you don't follow the instructions that I put on there, one, it makes it really hard for me to grade, and two, you might be missing big parts of the assignment. So make sure there's at least somebody who's acting as a project manager. Print out your project deliverables and literally check off each thing as you go, okay? Because that was one of the hard things is if a whole section is missing and it was worth like 5 points, I can't give you credit for it if it's not there. So follow the directions, all right? Also, feel free to Google external references. There's tons of good documentations and tutorials on UX out there. And accountability is really big too. I'm going to be accountable to you in that I will make myself accessible and I will be there to help you outside of this class, okay? And I'll be here to answer questions or even give you guidelines on what to do to make your assignment better before you submit it. But it's not going to be something that I do the day that the assignments are due or even the 48 hours before assignments due. Like somebody emailed me their assignment and said, hey, can you look over our assignment before we submit it to see if there's anywhere where we get points taken off? Do you think that's feasible for a class of 166 students? If every group had me look at their assignment and essentially pre-grade it? No. So if you have a specific question, like, hey, we really didn't know how to do the task analysis and we Googled it and we couldn't find like a good source. Here's what we came up with. Can you tell us if we're on the right track? I would be happy to do that. I'm not going to say, oh, let me read your whole deliverable and pre-grade it so you don't get any points off. Okay. Don't procrastinate. Do your work on time. Report any problems that you have with your group early. Okay? A lot of students last semester waited until the semester was over and said, well, I didn't contribute to the group project because Susie took over the project and didn't give me the opportunity to do as much work as I wanted. And unfortunately, the answer that I have to give you at that point is, I'm grading you based on the work that you did. I can't give you a group work grade for work that you didn't contribute to. Okay? And the group project is 40% of your grade. And so the groups that had great groups loved being in the class. The groups that had sucky groups hated the class. So it's really important that you trust and have a good group, and that if you have any problems, to come to me early in the semester. Okay, so these are some of the class expectations. You can already read those for yourselves. This is your extra credit assignment. One of the things in this class is if I offer you extra credit, you should do it, okay? So here's the extra credit assignment. So up to 10 points on top of your exam grade. And each submission is worth up to 2.5 points. If you don't do the whole submission in its entirety, you might not get the whole 2.5 points. so that means you can do 4 submissions, is in a Word document, submit a picture and a half-page, double-spaced page write-up of why the picture represents bad design, okay? And this could be something such as the design of a door, or an exit sign, or a clock, or a classroom, or a mobile app, or a application you use for work. I'm pretty sure at least one person can give me a screenshot of web courses. So some of the things is that the picture can't be something that you found online when you Google examples of bad design. It has to be something that I can tell that you took in the context of your life. I literally took a picture last semester when I was in the bathroom and showed it to the class. And they're like, no way, you took that. I'm like, yeah, it's bad design. The picture doesn't have to be technology based, so don't think that it has to be user interface, because I'm really just interested in getting you to think about design in general as well. If somebody else sent me the exact same thing, like this particular door, you won't get credit for it because it's a duplication. But if you find a different door that has a different problem, then you will get credit. With the law of large numbers and the amount of space in this universe, it's less likely that you will duplicate efforts. So don't think it's a waste of your time if you find something and you want to submit it. Don't worry about somebody else submitting it. What I'll try to do is create a public page as when people do submit these things, post them out there so you can actually see what's already been submitted. Okay? And you need to apply concepts that you learned in this course. So far you haven't learned anything. But I'll be telling you things about visibility or technical affordances. So use some of these buzzwords from the jargon of this class to show me that you're actually learning something from the lectures when you submit the extra credit assignment. Okay? And then finally, you should also suggest a way to make the design better. Yes, Clyde?
So each of these Word documents is one submission of the 4 that are required, or that are?
No, so you can make up to 4 submissions, and so a half page and a picture is required for each of the submissions.
Okay.
Make sense?
Right.
Okay. So that would be up to 10 points on your overall exam grade. And you have to do this before your final exam date. Okay, anytime in the semester before your final exam. I don't want it to be the end of the semester and everybody needs 10 points on their grade because they took the final and they bombed it. And now I'm getting a slew of these examples. Okay? So I just want you to have forethought in your efforts. So there's actually a link here, which some of them aren't safe for work, but that shows some examples of design, and these are all related to bad spacing. And you can tell these are like real names. People digitally make them up. It's a new start, right? Not just regular ones. Alright, so see what you can find in the real world, and that way I can incorporate those in future lectures to hopefully make people laugh just like some of those. Alright, so this is my example of one of the interfaces on UCF campus. I'm going to keep you like 5 minutes late, I'm sorry. What do you think this is? It says user interaction required. Please close the cabinet doors. I'll give you a hint, I was in the student union. There's a Coke machine. So now you can't even get a Coke without user interaction. And then this is what happened. Here's my cup. I push the little button. I got this message, cup not found. Please place cup on tray or see staff member to purchase cups. So this is my first time coming to UCF, my first time eating in the student union, And this is what happened. Well, how do you think I felt?
Shit on Starbucks.
I happened to tell the student behind me in line that, I'm about to go teach my first class in human technology interaction. And she was wondering why I was taking a picture of the Coke machine. And she's like, oh, that's really cool. And then this is what she said. Yeah, the struggle is real. So some of the problems with this is that there's a cup there, obviously. So the error message is incorrect. Maybe saying something like, please see an attendant, the machine is malfunctioning, instead of saying something like cup not found because I obviously put a cup there. Okay? Yes?
They started putting RFIDs in those cups.
They put RF. That just seems like a lot of money invested in cups. Ah, okay. Well, it's its fault, not my fault. So they should have done something better here, because if all you're trying to do is get a cup for lunch and you have 30 minutes, you don't want to be sitting here trying to fight with the machine for 3 of those minutes. Okay? So think about how design and human-computer interaction affects each and every one of our lives on a daily basis. Okay? And that's the type of thing that you could send as an example. All right, so action items. Print and read your syllabus. Make sure to get the textbook. Complete the student surveys for the financial aid requirement. I've actually been asked to survey students if they're interested in possibly having an IT master's program at UCF, which realistically would probably be too late for any of you, but they're trying to get feedback anyway. So you will see questions to that nature in the student feedback survey. And then next time we're going to go over chapter 1, the usability of interactive systems. All right, if you have any questions, please stay after and we can